Hello and welcome to Impact Africa, our online talk show where we get to have conversations with diverse people and organizations who are impacting lives positively, and as well celebrate the positive news places in Africa and across the world. Yes, it is me, Dr. Kemi Akiode Adebayo, known as Mama K, and in today's program we've got the awesome, humble, gentle, tall, handsome, shall I go on?
Please stop.
Jason Kofo George. He is a songwriter, artist, music producer, worship leader, worship pastor. Wow, this young man is so skilled. And he's based in Stellenbosch, Cape Town, South Africa. And I just can't wait to hear you share your story.
Oh, man.
Jason,
Yes,
how are you?
I'm very well. I'm very, very excited. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for having me on Impact Africa. What an honor it is to be here.
It's a pleasure, and you're such a young man, and you're so cool.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, tell us.
And
first.
it's back.
I know, right?
It's
I
back
love
to front.
doing
You
that.
can't just do that.
I should have done that for me. In fact, that's what I
I
should
don't know
have
if
done.
it works with the headgear, but
No. As in,
like
I should
wear a
have
cap.
got my proper cap as well, so it'll be like cool.
I mean, I would have loved it. It's a look.
I know. Tell me your second name, Kofo.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
know it's a long name.
Yeah.
What does it mean, and where is it from? Where were you born? Let's start
The
with
whole
that.
story.
Yes,
The whole
come on.
shebang.
Yes.
So my second name is Kofo Rolalua.
Long.
It's very long. It's a sentence. I think it's 15 letters. It's 15 letters. None of this Michael, John nonsense. But it means the blessings of God that cannot be bought with money.
Wow.
I
That's
think
deep.
I'm Yoruba by origin.
Okay.
And in Yoruba, we tend to give these what turned out to be very prophetic names over our children. Like, oh, this child is a blessing. It's such an honor to have a name like that. I was born in Nigeria 26 years ago, as of 2023, to parents who were ministers. They pastored a few churches in Nigeria at the time. When I was 5 years old, we moved from Nigeria to South Africa.
Okay.
And they continued in the profession of leading churches and whatnot. And I grew up in the slipstream of my parents running after Jesus and trying to.
I like the way you put it. So 5 years old, ministers, both parents, basically, that's what you're saying, and you relocated to South Africa at that age. But
ma'am.
before we come to South Africa, because that's basically your adult life.
Yes.
What do you remember of Nigeria?
I remember quite a lot. I remember going to school. We started school very young. I think I was 3 when we started school at Redeemers International Christian School. I remember the church that they used to lead. I remember some people. I remember being a very stubborn kid.
Really? You?
That's me. Oh, please leave me alone. There's this one story. I can't remember how old I was, but there was some older uncle or something like that who was tasked with taking care of me, and he had a book, and he showed me a picture of a goat. And we had hit a stalemate because all I could say was, "This is a horse." This is a horse. And it's like, I don't know, normally a child is, a bit more agreeable, humble in their ignorance. This is a horse.
Not
I say
a
it's a
goat.
horse, it's not a goat. You're not going to convince me otherwise. I remember things like that. I remember athletics.
Okay.
When I was in Redeemers Christian School. I also remember starting my journey with being a musician. I started playing the drums in my parents' worship team.
At that age?
At that age, I was 3 years old. It was. And you would have thought I would have seen a pattern at 3 years old playing musical instruments. But I think the Lord was planning something at that early stage already.
Preparing you.
Yeah.
We'll come to that shortly.
Yes, ma'am.
So tell us now life in South Africa from age 5. Where did you school? And, for you being a Nigerian and South African, more or less, how's that been for you, culture-wise? Because I know
Culture-wise.
both parents from Nigeria.
Very Nigerian.
So, yeah.
So when I was 5, we relocated to South Africa. When I was 7, we moved to Cape Town. I grew up in a beach town called Bloberg, about 30 minutes outside of Cape Town CBD.
Right.
I grew up there until I went to university at Stellenbosch, studied electronic engineering, graduated,
Brainy.
moved on. You know, you'd think.
What do you mean you think?
I can prove you wrong.
Nah, come on.
I can promise you I can prove you wrong at the math and all of that. I think growing up a Nigerian in South Africa was a very interesting experience because there was this one moment when I was 10 years old where I came back from school and I was speaking with an accent that was Nigerian, colored, black, all mixed together. My mom hated it. She hated everything about what was coming out of my mouth. And she told me, you are going to go to school tomorrow and you're going to talk like a Nigerian.
Really?
Really, this actually happened.
And how did that not happen?
So I was always an obedient child who feared his mom. So I went to school for, I think it was 2 days, speaking, hello teacher. I didn't do my homework yesterday, ma. I didn't. So I'm so sorry, ma. Please. And then I was at school and my friends sort of apprehended me and they asked, what are you doing? And it's so funny. It's really.
I know. In fact, I believe and your mom doing that. I believe your mom doing that. Okay, and then what happened?
And, with that specific encounter,
Yeah,
so
and
I
did
told
you have
them.
to go back to?
So I told them actually. I told them, no, my mom said I must speak like a Nigerian, and then they asked me a question that must have changed my life. They said, how would she know? And I could not answer them because I hadn't thought that far. Because I was so scared of my mom she has the power to, put me in the direction of her leadership. So to say, but then at some point,
what then happened probably is you get to school, you speak Nigerian, your proper normal accent, which is probably what you're doing now, which I can't even tell where
it's from. It's just a mix.
It's a mix
of various environments.
Yeah. So, but then you get home and you go into the Nigerian accent.
Then you go, hi mom. Wash the dishes, yes ma. So one thing that I really enjoy now and I'm reaping the benefits of is because I spent a little bit of time here, I spent a little bit of time here. From a very young age, you end up being very flexible in learning how to enter a culture, identify what's important, how people speak. You get all of this cosmopolitan skill to walk in, be relatable, and not a fake relatable, but a real relatable, because that's kind of who you are. There's skills that I'm eating the benefits of today. So I don't, as much as I wanted to have a Nigerian upbringing, I really don't regret it. I see God's wisdom in it all.
So let's go to your music now. And
yes, ma'am.
When and how did you start? But even though you've said earlier, that you started drumming at the age of 3. And what else did you do at 5 that you said? At
5, I think we just moved to
you
South
moved.
Africa.
So you started drumming. At 3.
Yeah.
So how did you get into music? And then now being a worship leader, a music producer, worship pastor, and being called into ministry, as well at a young age, because I know you said, anyway, let me hear it from you. I know you had told me that story before, but I want to hear it from you. How, music, now, electrical engineer, into what you're doing now.
Okay. So I started, when we moved to South Africa, because of the disruption and selling everything and having to get new stuff, when we moved here, it wasn't very practical for me to stay playing music, so I took a break, for lack of a better word.
Right.
I started again when I was 8, and I asked for a guitar for my birthday. My parents bought me the guitar for my birthday, and then I immediately joined my primary school's worship team after that, just because it looked cool. I don't know why it looked cool. I can't tell you why, but it just did. Singing all those old school Jesus hymns. And the next year, this was when I was 9, so this was in the year 2006, my mother's father unfortunately passed away, God rest his soul. And my mom ended up going to Nigeria for a month to get involved in the logistics of burying him. She was the worship leader at our church at the time, our tiny house church. And next thing I know, I'm leading worship on a Sunday at 9 years old.
Wow.
So it started
Wow.
very, very young. I think by now it's about 18 years that I've been involved with music ministry, but I was always either managing a worship team in a micro sense, or just being a musician. When I moved to Stellenbosch, I moved to Stellenbosch from Cape Town. I left my parents' church because I was physically moving. I was leading their worship ministry at that point as a musician. Moved to Stellenbosch, joined my church there, started getting involved in leadership positions there.
Okay.
And then slowly but surely it became apparent to me by either people speaking words of encouragement or just my own internal drive and push against what I wanted to do, by the way. But it became clear that God was sort of wanting me to go into ministry in music, but not just in music, but also in sort of leadership development and in discipling young leaders at this stage of my life in campus. So I was studying engineering, doing all of this stuff. Then I graduated, and when I graduated, I started working as a software engineer. I did that for about 5 years.
Right.
But while I was in software engineering, I was also leading a worship ministry at my local church at the time. Well, leading as a sort of deputy to the guy who was my worship pastor at the time. And then he, a few years ago, let me know that he was going to move to about 5 hours away, a town 5 hours away from here. And I was the next best option, apparently.
God keeps pushing.
God keeps
direction.
pushing. He has to, because if he doesn't, I won't obey. So I did the half working full time as a software engineer, half leading the music ministry for about a year or two. And then there were economic changes in South Africa. I got retrenched, but I got retrenched because the Lord had spoken to me about going into ministry and I was disobedient. So the Lord did his thing. And so here I am. And then, I ended up getting offered a position as the leader of the worship ministry at my church. And so that's more or less how I got into music ministry.
I'm so honored to be having this conversation with you. And I'm always so humbled, when I find young people like you who at a very early, age, even though, like you said, you wrestled a little bit with God, being disobedient, but still, you still found your way to the calling and the purpose, for your life. What has been some of the challenges, for you, and what are you mostly proud of, so far? You're still very young.
Very, very young.
A lot ahead of you.
Thank God.
But still,
wow. If this is my ceiling, I would be crying. This would be a counseling session. I'd be, and then I remember when I was 3 and this happened. So I think ministry has a very glamorous exterior. And that exterior there's some truth in it. It is quite glamorous, being able to lead and preach and, travel the world like I do, doing music and doing music ministry and building these kinds of relationships. But the very first challenge that I guess one still has to navigate with wisdom is I jumped out of a very lucrative career field. And as a software engineer with 5 years experience, I was essentially a senior in the industry.
And earned a lot of money.
Earning a lot of more money than I had any business earning at my age of 24, 25. And then here comes Jesus with desires for me to go into something that is a lot less lucrative and a lot less stable. And it's not even necessarily about the employment position. It's just do you trust Jesus enough? Do you trust God enough to take care of you? I grew up in a ministry household, so I'm very, very well acquainted with the struggles. PK, pastor's kid. It was wobbly in the beginning, but now it's on the right track. And when you're in the ministry, you become a servant of others. If someone's going through a rough time, they need an ear, they need wisdom, they need emotional energy. It's very expensive. it's, it's not necessarily as materially rewarding.
Yeah.
And having grown up in the ministry, you have a front row seat to the challenges that go against the ministers or the ministers' wives or the ministers' children in particular. And for me, I had a strong aversion to just running into the field just because I know everything that can go wrong because it has gone wrong a few times in my upbringing. And in all of that, through the cloud of logistics, and I even had to fight with my parents about going into the ministry just because they wanted, the lucrative job, the white picket
plan
fence,
for you because they've seen
wedding.
it, they've been there, but they
But in all of that, the lesson was: do you trust God? Like, do you trust that whatever it is? Do you have the faith to hear Him, to believe Him? And then to believe that whatever He wants us to do is the best thing for us. If He wants someone to be a business person, then that's the best thing for them. They should not be in the ministry. But in the converse is true. If He wants someone to be in the ministry, they should not be a business person because it's not for them.
Right.
And learning to trust God is so challenging.
Deep. I really want to find out more, and this is only the first segment of what we're doing, but I know time is running out for this bit. But before we go into the break, where we want to show one of your work, the song, you wrote "Welcome Home." You wrote it or produced it.
I wrote it,
and you sang in it.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about it, and then we'll go into the break to hear it.
Yes. So very briefly, I'm part of a worship movement called Shofar Band. It's connected to the Shofar family of churches.
That's one, Shofar. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. So we are very, very big on worship and worship ministry. I happen to serve on the leadership team of that ministry. And this song came out of one of the songwriting weekends that we have, which we do very regularly across the country. And the message of the song, I was on a crew of people, about 8 people who happened to write the song. I produced the song, I wrote a lot of the music, I sang the song on the final recording. It's a story of the prodigal son, honestly. God has given us, it's very African in its sound and in its style. God has given them, the message of the song is God has given His Son, He shed His blood, and He invites us to come back home. Like He invites us to come and sit at His table. He invites us to come and share in His love. He invites us to come and share in His love with one another even, and to in that way respond to Him. So it's more a song in faith, welcoming everybody back who is coming back to the Father. Everybody on the continent that would come back to Jesus, and not come back to institutional church as much as it is come back to Jesus, the very person of Jesus.
That.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you know what? We'll hear that music. Enjoy. So Jason, being a pastor's kid, both parents, by the way, born in Lagos, Nigeria, started drumming at the age of 3. You were involved, obviously with your parents, kind of, in church in Nigeria, and relocated to South Africa. What are the 3 important things for you that you value most in life?
In life?
For you, and coming from background experience and so on.
Coming from background experiences, I think number one. And why? Number one, God. Because I think the fear of the Lord is the beginning of all wisdom. and the fear of the Lord, like if you fear God, you will not be corrupt. If you fear God, you will not treat your friends badly. If you fear God, you will honor your parents. If you fear God, you will steward your finances well. You will be a good citizen. You will be altruistic. So I think my relationship with the Lord personally is one of the biggest features in my life.
Right.
Number 2 is community. Because in my 10 years since I started university, I've experienced a lot of people that come into my life and they disperse all over the world. Some move to America to work and to study and whatnot. And I've seen the ones who stayed close to their friends and their support structures and their families, and I see the ones that didn't, and I see the difference. And I think it's a better way to live. I really love people, really, a lot more than I should. And I think if we made decisions just with our relationships in mind, we would be happier. So even some decisions that I've made about where I've chosen to work are centered around, oh no, but I don't want to go to this country and make much more money and lose myself, but I want to stay here. And I think genuineness, like there's no point of pretense in my world, especially because when you entertain pretense, it's just another layer of fakeness to being known yourself, you know. We all have those friends who have those well-manicured lives. You know, we see great things from the outside all the time. Nothing's wrong. And we all kind of don't like them. we kind of entertain them just a little bit. There's no point for me. It's like, why not just live genuinely before your community, before God, before your parents, before your children? Yeah, those are my three.
Wow, awesome.
Authenticity is the...
Awesome, that's different, you know, in terms of what some people have said. And I like that because they're all totally valid. So what motivates you as a person?
What motivates me? That's a big question, because I mean, every human being has negative motivations. My fear of failure probably is a decent enough motivation, but it's not a primary one. It's just no one wants to fail, especially if you're a Nigerian. You know, we Nigerians.
Are you the one that everybody do they have? They've got two eggs. Is that not what our parents normally say?
Yes. Are you the only one that God spoke to? You know, so fear of failure is probably it would be a negative motivation. I think if I'm honest, I have this big dream, and I'm probably not going to see it in my lifetime. But I want to see the continent of Africa rebuilt in terms of families, in terms of economies, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of friendships. Like, there's so much in African society that's broken, and I really love this continent. I don't see myself moving unless Jesus appears to me in the flesh and tells me to move somewhere else. And every decision, that's why ministry has been so easy, because I can see the future in my actions today. I see leaders that are being created and discipled and you know, instilled with integrity, and I see them becoming fathers. I see them becoming church leaders. I see them becoming CEOs. I see them becoming governors. And you know, not destroying our lovely, beautiful continent anymore. So that's probably one of the things that motivates me most.
So let me go on now to success, because to some people, they go, oh, you know, you've been successful, a music producer, an engineer, traveling around the country and so on. And you've been in a lot of leadership role, either whereby suddenly, like you said earlier on, you had to take on that role. So what does success mean to you, and leadership?
So success and leadership. When I was growing up, I would have said success looks like the big house, the big car, you know, being able to give money away and even do the super generous things. And in the process of stepping out of corporate marketplace work and into sort of more ministerial work, it changed very drastically to be measured by a few things. One, I want to give my kids a good name one day. Two, I want the people around me to be better off for having known me than the otherwise.
Right.
And three, I want to be able to die, well, because everybody's going to die one day. I want to be able to die, get to heaven, and have the Father say, my son, you did everything I wanted you to do. You know, even I wouldn't, it'll probably defeat the experience a little bit, but if I stand there and the experience is, oh no, you did mostly, but that little bit, I don't want there to be a little bit, you know. If that means earthly suffering and earthly hardship, I wouldn't be the first. You know, I wouldn't be the first to suffer for the purposes that I believe in. So I wouldn't measure my success by material possessions. Also, in the same breath, with leadership, a lot of people think leadership is about the position. You know, you're a leader when you're a president, you're a leader when you're a governor, you're a leader when you're a line manager. And I think leadership starts with the self, the individual.
Right.
Like, leadership that doesn't acknowledge the leader's ability to lead themselves is illegitimate for me, because then they're actually just acting out their impulses. Leadership is the idea for me, but I also probably am a visionary in that regard. You see the future and you can move people to the future gently and in a way that they want to get there,
right,
non-manipulatively, but it's the idea to affect the world that you're in for the better. That's my view.
I love that. So what qualities would you say then one needs as a leader?
As a leader, empathy.
Okay.
Empathy is up there. Empathy is just my ability to enter your world, Auntie Kay. Imagine how you would experience this, how you would respond to this, what your needs are, how to engage the need, and to actually act it out. You know, so many of the leaders of a bygone era, I'm not going to name any names, but point in a direction and expect everybody to go there, or do something that is great on paper, but maybe the execution is a bit rough. And then when the people that they lead are struggling underneath them, they are disconnected from that. No, but I gave you this, I did this. Like a leader should be able to step into the world of anyone he's leading and say, I actually understand you. And not because that gives me power over you, but because I want to serve you. So empathy, servant-heartedness is great. Like, for me as a leader, the thing that makes a servant is that they live for the joy of the one that they are serving. If I'm serving my children, I live for the joy of my children. If I'm serving my constituents, I live for the joy of my constituents. If I'm serving because I'm in ministry, maybe a church example, if I'm a pastor serving my church, I live for the joy and the happiness of well, not the happiness as much as the betterment of my people. And humility.
Right.
You know, empathy, humility, and servant-heartedness, I think, are my biggest qualities as a leader.
I love that. You know what? We'll be right back.
Your mercy.
That segment, that we just finished, Jason, I loved all what you were saying there about what you value most: God, community, genuineness, and the qualities of leader, empathy, humility, and servant-heartedness are just really, really, there's just a lot in there already. However, I want to now ask you, just leading on from all that, what are some of the life lessons? I know you're still young.
Yeah.
I'm making you feel very, very old now, but you have so much experience already, in terms of continents, schools, and countries rather than, and then even interacting with different people, like you said, in uni, where they're now all over the place. So what life lessons, would you share with us that will be useful for a young person? Or that 3 years, no, 3 is still young. At 3, you don't even want to do anything. That 10-year-old, when you said at one time you were leading, worship, in your parents' church. So what life lessons can you share with us?
So growing up, my parents being Nigerian and a foreign culture that they don't understand at all, and they don't necessarily, they want to live in the culture, but they don't get it.
Are you sure you want them to hear that?
No, they'll tell you themselves. But it's just the first generation immigrant problems. I'm sure Nigerians that live in different parts of the world also know this. They were quite strict. And I could never wrap my head around it. And especially as I entered the dreaded teenage years. Just, every teenager on earth really thinks that they are like
coolest
Desmond Tutu or something. They think the wisdom has hit them and I was the same. And I some of the things that I said to my parents, I have since gone back and groveled in the dirt. Please forgive me. I knew nothing of what I was doing. But in all of this, I think I learned, even though now my relationship with my parents has changed since I moved out of the house for university, and now I'm an independent and an adult. Most of what they told me back then was correct. Even if sort of there's a lot around how to live and the way my decision making has panned out that is different from theirs, and it's my life, it's not their life, and I have to follow the Lord as best as I want to, not my parents. There's so much I could have done better if I just listened to not just my parents, but the people around me. I think I would like to think that I've unlearned this, but when you're young, oftentimes we have this sort of arrogance about the way we live, I wonder
why that is.
It's just because you don't know much.
I know.
If I don't know much, I don't know what I don't know. And all I'm left with are some ideas that could change the world, yes. But if I don't know much, I don't know that some of these ideas have been tried before. I don't know how they could fail. I could take the same line, if you don't know your history, you are doomed to repeat it. And because we are not as good, or I was not as good when I was young at imagining what other people's worlds must be like, there's this, oh no, but I'm the first. I'm the first to think about loving my friends. I'm the first to think about who to vote for. And it bleeds into I'm the first to get called into being a business person and then navigating it without the wisdom of older people and even people at our own level that have gone before. In Yoruba, there's an expression that says, an old man sitting at the bottom of the tree can see more than a child sitting right at the top of the tree.
I know that one. You should say it in Yoruba.
I don't know it.
But it's good to still remember it now. I'm joking. I'm just but the fact that you brought it up, I know it. I'm trying to remember how to say it, but I don't want to embarrass myself too. So I won't bother.
For the world.
For the world to see. For Africa to see. So but I know that one. That say it again.
What the old man sitting at the bottom of the tree can see further than the young man sitting at the top. And I think I've just learned a whole lot of humility. Humility in all regards. You have situations where even one of my closest friends, He's a Zulu guy. We lead the worship team together. Just for the sake of the story, his name is Sean. We've had, over our many years of friendships, a lot of run-ins,
Right.
as you can imagine, which is natural. Not negative run-ins, but say I have a problem with him that he's done this, or he has a problem with me that I've done that. And then as we start talking and getting into the meat of it, we realize, wait, not everything is as simple as it seems. Not everything is as formulaic as it seems. You know, it's like, and I've learned to just have, even as my journey as a pastor now, like to see things happen to people that I don't understand, to see things and people behave in ways I wouldn't recommend, but I have to have humility around how I see the world, how I view the world, my role in the world, because I'm also just a tiny little fragment of the universe who doesn't know everything and who hasn't experienced everything.
Yeah.
So I think if anything, become a learner of people and of life. That's the biggest life lesson. It's the easiest way to grow. It's the easiest way to like break beyond the world that you see in front of you and to maybe grab hold to the world that is in your future, is to just grow into it. And it's not a, oh, you're less valuable. It's just grow. In life we all grow. We'll grow till we die.
Interesting. Okay, I really have a lot of other questions, but I think this is going to be the last one because I'm being told we've run out of time already, but we'll keep going. And this question is always very important for me to hear what young people like you will say. And it's basically asking you, what social issue are you passionate about, or that maybe you don't even have any passion about it, or you feel something needs to be done about it, and maybe not necessarily you, but I want to know what that is. But at the same time, I want to know what are the solutions to that problem, because it's jolly well good talking about problems. It's always about what are the solutions. So,
So I think my biggest social issue is actually a family of issues, and I think they're all centered around advocacy.
Okay.
So in society, because of the way societies are made up, we have many different people with many different beliefs and many different views of how government should be run, many different views of what is right. And in a country like South Africa, one of the biggest governmental problems is how many young people don't vote. You know, and without going too deep into the specifics of what is going on in the South African government, a lot of our issues would be fixed if, just at that level, would be fixed if young people educated themselves on policy, on politics, and then went out and voted. You know, a lot of municipal issues would be fixed if young people arose in their municipalities where they live, voted for councillors, you know, voted to remove councillors who weren't doing anything. A lot of those kinds of things will be fixed. A lot of issues, as a Christian, I'm not the biggest fan of abortion, for instance. And abortion is legislation, it is law in the land. Any member of society can render their opinion about any piece of law that comes into the government's fold. We can say, no, we do not stand for abortion. No, we do not stand for child abuse. No, we do not stand for gender-based violence. And at the end of the day, I think it's the source of it is probably just a disconnect between the generation above us and the generation that we are in, where somehow in the way that the world was structured, in the way that we were raised, we forgot the fact that this is the world we are inheriting. This is our world to live in. And when God made Adam and Eve, he commanded them to take dominion of the earth and to rule it, you know. And what I believe in that is that God has given us the world to together steward. Climate issues, we need to steward it together. You know, governmental issues, we need to steward together. Issues of poverty and homelessness, we need to steward it together. Issues of mental illness and drug abuse, gang wars, murder, petty crimes, we need to come together as society, realize that this is our society. At a continental level, Africa belongs to Africans, and participate in moving the continent or whatever cause that we have in the direction that we'd like it be. Because no one's going to come save us.
No.
You know, no one's going to brush my teeth. I have to brush my teeth. No one's going to sweep my house, except maybe my children. You know, I have to wake up, realize that this is the world that God has given me the authority over and the responsibility over, and do something about it. And it bleeds, it's something that needs to happen in the heart of every young person, I believe, because it'll change this nation. If people figure out what they believe and find the energy to live like they believe what they say they believe. Ownership.
Right. Wow. Whew. See me writing there, huh? You've sent me to school. I'm just writing away there. And yeah, it's been awesome. It's been humbling, you know, for me, your humility, your deep look, you know, about things and views, your connection, you know, with people, most of all what you've shared there. And I'm sure, I am positive, a lot of young people will be inspired and motivated, you know, by you at age 26
Yeah.
only.
Thank
you know, but like you said, you've had to navigate, you know, the world through your parents and the people around you, and you've learned how to now use that, you know, as an asset to touch the lives of others in the calling that God had already prepared for you way back, even before you knew it. So, Jason, I celebrate you.
Thank you so much.
Kofo, I honor you. Our KBAC for judges.
Amen. Thank you so much, Mama K.
I honor you. Thank you for all you're doing. You might not know it, you might not feel it, and you might not even get appreciated for it, you know, where people say, oh yeah, you did that. I'm sure you probably do. But at the same time, I want to use this opportunity on behalf of all the people you're currently working with, through your music, through your worship, through your leadership, you know, in every way. We honor you. And we wish you all the very best. That Africa that you dream of, don't say maybe not in your lifetime, maybe not in my lifetime, but I believe it can still happen in your lifetime.
Amen.
Because, you know, it's people like you in Africa that will need to just together, like you said, with others, like-minded, in little ways. We cannot completely solve the problem of the world. China as it is, India as it is. Yes, they're growing in economy and so on, but there's still issues. But so far we manage, you know, what we need to manage, and know that, yes, like you said, we have to do this in Africa for ourselves. Nobody else should come and be doing this for us. So thank you. Kudos to you.
Thank you so much, Mama K. I really appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.
It's a pleasure.
I really appreciate every word.
It's a pleasure.
And thank you for doing this for young people. I think my prayer for you is that you will see the extent of the impact that the Lord is using you to do.
Amen.
To reach and to parent and to mother a generation of us.
That's all it is. You know, even if it's only one life that this manages to touch, it's good enough. That's all we're called to do. You know, servant leader, all what you said there. So in closing, because we've overrun, but we're coming back because I know I want to come and hear more music.
Yes, ma'am.
Maybe experience you doing your thing with the worship leader, whatever it is. We want to follow up on more music that I know is there in the pipeline.
Yes, ma'am.
And we'll want you to maybe share as well how to get your music. We will share it at the end as well. But in closing, this is the big bit. I need you to please just share words of encouragement or anything else to anyone out there that you want to speak to, please.
So this morning, this afternoon while I was driving here, I was having this moment. I had to take a different route just because we are having a bit of political instability in South Africa, and it's changed a bit of our roads. And I realized that life is not simple. Life is not easy. And we grow up in a world where people tell us, follow your heart, follow your dreams, follow your passions. And the reality is, it's not that simple. It's just, there's financial implications to following your dreams. If you come out of a home that is on the bad side of the economy, it doesn't look the same for you to take a free internship for a year to work to build your trade and become a film producer, or whatever it is the story is. In all of this, I think it's clear that there's a lot of dreams. There's a lot that God has released into our lives. There's a lot that He's made us to be. I think that there are three very essential things that I would just want to encourage us to do. One, we need to figure out what it is God wants us to do and who He wants us to be. The first thing that He wants us to be is sons and daughters. The second thing He wants us to be is, holy Christians who love Him and who obey His statutes and who love their neighbor and who, honor their parents and who do not murder and do not, do all of these things. But then He's made us to do something. We need to know what that is. We need to know who He is. Step two is we need to feel a little bit submerged, drowning a little bit at how big what He wants us to do is. If the dream that you have with God doesn't terrify you, it's probably not from God. If it doesn't fill you with fear, like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to get there? I'm just talking, like, I'm just saying some random beautiful things, but how am I going to get there? If we're walking with God, He is faithful. He'll walk with us. He'll take us there. If it's a dream on His heart, if it's God's will, He'll pay the bill, and it's very important for us to realize how scared we are, because we then see how much we need Him. And then the third thing we need to do is just do it scared. Recognize that in the first chapter of the book of Joshua, it says, have I not commanded you? Verse 9, have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be terrified and do not be discouraged. Why? Because the Lord your God is with you. And I believe so much of the fears and the anxieties and the things that worry us and keep us out of our calling and the purposes and the reason why God would put us as we are on the earth is centered around that. Are we afraid? If we are, we must remember that God is with us and we must stop. And He'll be with us. That's all that I felt to share tonight.
Wow. You were speaking to me there with all those three things as well, even though people might go, no, but you were, those are essential three things, and I hope and I know that some people will get it. Be strong and courageous. Life is not simple. Just making sure what you said, submerge yourself in God and, okay, let me stop there.
Yeah, before we cry together.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If the dream you have does not terrify you, then it's not from God. Yeah. Okay. Jason Kofo George.
Yes, ma'am.
Salute you again. Thank you. Wish you all the best. God will keep keeping you on, keep protecting you.
Amen.
And He will keep using you
Amen.
mightily. I can't wait to hear more of your story and to see you as well. So we're there with you. We're in the community.
Amen.
You have no choice.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. It's on camera.
It's on camera. Okay, that's all we've got time for. I've had fun. It's been humbling. It's such a humble man, gentle, creative, respectful, and so much, to give for the world. And, check him out, on his Instagram. We're going to share that on all the pages of his so that you will be inspired and encouraged, by him, his chauffeur band, what they're doing, ministry around the world, and so on and so forth. So we will be sharing the details, at the end. Okay, that's all we've got time for till next time. This is Dr. Mama K signing off, saying, stay safe, stay blessed. What have you got to add?
Stay safe, stay blessed, be encouraged.
Be encouraged. Yeah, be strong, courageous, be encouraged.
Amen.